The world is struggling to find its way with hard work because the world is doing a good job of being thoughtful about burnout. I love that. I love that I use the word work ethic now instead of the word hustle, not because of anything else, but if the world has taken the word hustle and changed it on me, which is what happened.
Yep.
When I used hustle, you've got to give effort. It didn't mean get yourself into depression and don't sleep and use drugs to cope. That's not how I define it. That is how the world defines it. I am thrilled to adjust my word, but the world is struggling with the word work ethic. It just is. And so what ends up happening is parents are struggling to find that balance. Yes, you can be better at everything in the world. There's not one thing in the world that I don't think I can be better at. Not one. Skiing, teaching, punching, eating. There's everything I can be better at. I can't be world class at everything. That is something the world's gonna have to get better at.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because in my first business, I was making $300 a month. I quit on my business partner, and the thing that saved me was studying the stories of super successful entrepreneurs. So I hope that this story today helps give you the motivation you need, because I still need it too myself. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Gary Vaynerchuk, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy.
Honey, you can be anything you want in the world. Honey, you can maximize your natural talents in every category if you put a lot of work ethic into it. You just might not be Beyonce and LeBron, and that's awesome. But like, for example, I love basketball. I could be way better. I could tomorrow hire a new shooting coach. I'm wealthy now. I can hire a shooting coach, can come to my apartment even. Every day of the week, I can get up at 6 a.m. I can be better than my brother, even though he's better than me now, if I really went hard for the next 5 years and worked on my game. But I'm not going to be in the NBA. And we've got to find that place with I do it with my employees. I do it with my employees. I do it with my family. I do it with everybody in the world through content, because it leads to a better place.
But then there's such a fine line between you helping and you being a dream crusher.
Correct. But a dream crusher is based on delusion. Like, again, it's a very simple sentence. Dad, I'm going to be X. Cool. Anything that isn't physical, I would argue is in play. I think it's much easier to be the president of the United States of America than it is to be an NBA player.
Yep.
I think it's much easier to be famous on television than it is to be an NBA player. I think it's much easier to be the greatest chef in the world than it is to be an NBA player. I think where crushing dreams has to come in is a little bit, based on realities of physical stuff, right? I just think that's real. And a lot of people gravitate towards physical stuff early on. But if somebody says they're gonna be an astronaut, everybody's in play for an astronaut. Now, if you're like my mom and everything makes you nauseous, one could argue you have more hurdles to get over, to become an astronaut, but I still think you can get over the hump on nausea. I did, by the way, on the record. In my youth, I struggled with flights and my tummy would hurt. I threw up on flights in my teenage years. Now I take flights every hour of the day. So I got better. Heights, I'm better. Like, I live high now and my office high. So you can get better at things.
Rule number 2, embrace the detours.
The number one thing I've recognized in the last 25 years of managing people about high performers is their North Stars change. So a 24-year-old who's come in here 2 years in and is completely dominated may sit down with me and she may tell me that she's gonna be the CEO of the whole company one day. And I get excited. I go, good, because I'm old and I can't wait for someone to take over. And we laugh. Sometimes that 24-year-old at 29 finds their life partner. And all of a sudden, she and he's not in the office 15 hours a day every day. And they're not going down the path of becoming the CEO anymore. And I'm very conscious of that. First of all, don't forget what I said, high touch, so I'm paying attention. And either if they sit on it too long, or they tend to bring up like, hey, I think I need a little more work-life balance. And I'm like, mazel tov, amazing. I don't need you to be the CEO. You wanted to be the CEO. You're gonna work your face off. Let there be no confusion. There is no other way. And back to the earlier question, that's too big of a price for some people with family. Others figure out how to manage it, and everything in between. Everyone has their own situation. But the reality is with high performers is allowing them room to change their mind. Number 3, understanding the balance between praise and truth and candor. A lot of times people are over complimentary of high performers or disproportionately under complimentary depending on what strategy they're deploying. Many people try to pick at the shortcomings of their high performers to keep them in line. Others try to over-verbalize to keep them in line because they give them positive reinforcements, but they can't afford maybe the financial or the title things that the person's, and the truth is, you've got to find the middle. It's got to be based on the actual truth. And people struggle with that because they're using one or two or both sides of the equation of what I just said. So for me, it's a lack of fear of losing them. It's a deep commitment to an actual relationship above and beyond the professional one. It's over communicating with them when you're not going to deliver on what they want. Gary, I need to be a senior vice president this next race cycle. Let me sleep on it. 3 weeks later, hey, I think it's gonna be an extra cycle. And here's why. And I always say this, hey, I'm making a subjective decision. I might be wrong. I'm in the unfortunate position to have to make that subjective decision. And you have humanity. Humanity's missing.
Rule number 3, focus on happiness.
For me, the happiness part is the only part. I was happy as f in this store down there in 2001 where nobody in the world knew who the f I was. I was as happy 21 years ago in this building, and it wasn't even this building, this was built later. It was a little building down there facing that street right down there 21 years ago as I am this exact second. Not a dollar, not a fan, not a nothing. Nothing that has happened to me publicly in the last 20 years has added a single ounce of happiness. The process is my happiness. And there's no way to get to a great place without it. You'll just burn out.
Rule number 4, aim for retention.
I think that for me, a high performing team starts with retention. More than even how much money we have in the bank. I care more about how long are people staying at the company on average. So for me, a high performing team is first based on retention, which is just black and white math. On the gray side, the non-measurable, I use my intuition on how happy are the people. Some people stay in jobs because of money. That is often a gateway to unhappiness. And so it's not just retention, it's overall common sense / intuition / emotional intelligence to get a sense of how happy are they while they're here. And then finally, I judge performance or know how it's a high performing team based on the results. You know, for all the warm and fuzzies, I'm sure you sensed this in the book that I wrote, for all the warms and fuzzies and la 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 and all this, if you're, in that book are words like tenacity and ambition, and I think work ethic matters, and I think results matter. I think that so much of the world's unhappiness and anxiety is based on the fact that we eliminated or demonized competition at the youth level. The idea that 8th place trophies are a good idea is a huge mistake, in my one person's opinion. And so the other way I recognize if there's a high performing team is if they're winning. And in business, that means they're hitting their financial goals, both top line revenue and profit. For me, not only do I measure success financially, top line and below the line revenue, in a year, I try to look at it in a 3, 5, 7 year window, thus giving, and this is important to hear, thus giving a team the ability to over focus on happiness and retention in a given year that may actually hurt them on their top line and bottom line revenue. But if I look at the body of work, I'm always building businesses in perpetuity. We talk all about building brand which is a marathon, right? Let's build a brand. Yet, you know this, everybody here knows this. The business operators from the CFO down care very much about sales. And we do many things to hurt our brand in the face of hitting numbers and sales, because we are in corporate environments held accountable to stock prices. What's great about running private businesses is I've only been running Vayner for 14 years. There was 3 years where we barely made a profit. I was transitioning, we were growing up, I wanted to try some things, I made a lot of mistakes, we had some casting issues, we had some product market fit issues, but had I been a publicly traded CEO, I might have not been able to make it to that 4th year in the window that I'm referring to, which ended up being our highest profit year ever.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, scale human behavior.
I think the thing that one of the biggest reasons I understood that social was gonna work was people didn't understand that humans' basic need is to communicate. Basic human need is to communicate, and social allowed people to communicate through pictures and words at scale, right? And when I was an early investor in Twitter, everyone's like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like in all of 2006, 7, 8, 9, that was my only conversation. Everyone's like, who cares if you're walking the dog? Who cares if you're eating pizza? Who cares if you're going to Spain? And my answer was always consistent. I said, everyone. And it really, really made everyone struggle, which was, by the way, at that point, no different than what happened to me in 1997 when I said, I'm gonna sell wine on the internet. And everybody in my world was like, why would anybody buy wine on the internet? You can go to the store. Who's gonna buy wine on the internet? And I said, everyone. And that's because what people struggle with is they make decisions based on themselves, their opinions, their self-interest, where they are in their career, instead of having the humility to look at scaled human behavior. History always tells you the future. I had an e-commerce site in 97. Do you know how many people did not want to put their credit card into a computer? Everybody here who has not wanted to take the 3 hours of work to build a non-custodial wallet doesn't realize they just became their parents from 25 years ago. Everything you made fun of your parents for, you've become. And I think that's cool, because that's what humans do, but it's very true. Right? For us, looking around this room, it seemed very simple in 99 and 2000 to put a credit card in. It didn't seem like high friction. To our 40 and 50-year-old parents, it was massive. They were completely scared of getting their credit card scammed and things of that nature. That's just what happens. You became your folks.
Rule number 6, don't be in a hurry.
The fact that it says, even the question gets exciting for me, because you said, how fast can you build a successful company? Even that is why I think most people are not winning. I've never thought of anything besides how slow can I build something.
But speed matters now. I
think speed is the poison. Yeah, okay, speed matters. I also think it's why nobody's winning. Speed is the devil.
But so is sitting and analyzing and never doing.
No.
Right, so there's an opposite.
That's right.
There's a counter.
Do you know why everyone's sitting and analyzing so much? Because they're trying to figure out how to do it fast. Speed's the devil. It was really funny. Obviously, back to jumping in, that was a really fun moment, right? Because I'm saying TikTok, because I think you're going to go, where do you start? And
that's why I didn't stop.
And I appreciate that. I like how you did it. The reason I went so ham 4 years ago on TikTok was I knew what the question is from everyone. I was like, this could actually get people going. Because we'd gone through 5 years of mature Facebook and Instagram, and it was like, there was no fast.
Yep.
TikTok was the first thing that I saw that was fast, completely based on the merit of the creative. But the problem is, a lot of the people that got it fast didn't necessarily go into it trying to get it fast. Some of it was on a spoof, on a lark. Some heard me and talked about shit they cared about, and because they cared about it, and they were passionate about Star Trek and they knew a lot about Spock and Captain Kirk, it hit for the people that also did. So, I think the interesting part of your question, the answer to your question is, if I was exactly me, would be okay because I've never wanted fast because I've always sensed, and now I feel very confident that I'm right at 46 years old, that fast is what fucks everyone up because you go into shortcut land and that's just real talk. It just is. So I couldn't recommend more people trying to think about things like, okay, and this is why I fuck with the youngsters. For the youngsters, I'm like, listen, when you're 20, if I'm telling you 10 years, when you're 20, you were 10 years old 10 years ago. And I remember being 22 and my cousin Bobby being 30. And I thought my cousin Bobby was the oldest man on earth. So I know how hard it is when I tell them, hey, think of this as a 10-year game. They're like, you, Gary, that feels like forever. The problem is, it's why so many 20-year-olds lose. It's also back to mental health and all that. It's why they're all so anxious. They want fast to show everyone else they won. They don't want fast for any other reason but to flex. And that's really f***ing them up. Fast is the devil. The cancer is doing it for other people thinking you made it. So now you got fast cancer is how most of these kids are playing it.
You use some of that towards your fuel. Like you say it all the time where people thought you were a loser because you were the entrepreneur, like growing up. You use that as a chip on your shoulder. Chip
on shoulder is very different. Yes, to your point. Yes, but the problem is when I was growing up and using it as a chip on the shoulder, I wanted the merit of success to be it. I never thought anyone on earth would know who I was. In the business community, I literally thought in the liquor business people would know me and that was my life.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up with what these kids want. Almost every kid subconsciously wants fame. It's insane. There's a reason why most actors and actresses, especially child ones, went to rehab. It's hard, back to what we were talking about, right?
Yep.
I wanted chip on shoulders to like be successful for the game. A lot, which is why I never bought shit. To this day, it's why I don't buy shit. Because I don't want the proxy. I didn't want the Mercedes or BMW or Rolex or house in Short Hills with a pool and a house in the Hamptons. I didn't even know the Hamptons existed until I was 30 years old. I grew up in Jersey my whole life. I knew nothing about the flex. Now, back to chip on shoulder, to your point as motivation, it's the perception of success that all these kids want.
Rule number 7, take real feedback.
I'm a big fan of trying to get real feedback from human beings that interact with human beings. So when I'm making decisions on hiring, I try to see if I can find a person or two that's close to that person, that doesn't have a horse in the race, that's worked with them in the past, the real. And then you just observe it when they work for you. The way I pick managers are the ones who have, these emotional intelligence skills. But, listen, there's some very aggressive emotional intelligence skills that matter. Ambition matters. For example, one of the traits I talk about in the book is ambition. Ambition matters. Like somebody that's hungry is going to achieve more. It's just that, ambition over passiveness is a factor in winning. But so is accountability. So you have ambitious people who don't like accountability. They like to blame everybody else. They like fingers, not thumbs.
So some of these skills kind of contrast with each other.
Yeah, I think so. Like, to me, being content and being like my life, wild levels of complacent. I wouldn't call it complacency. I call it content. I'm incredibly grateful. Actually, that's the one I use in the book. Gratitude and ambition could seem as a contradiction. I'm so grateful for everything I have and don't have any expectations, no entitlement to more, but have incredible drive for more, right?
Yep.
So I think, yes, I do think, kindness and empathy confuse people. I laugh when people are confused by that, right? Curiosity is actually a heavy, and humility, two things I talk a lot about, being curious and being humble. But at the same token, conviction. So I'm incredibly curious, but I have wild conviction. Humility is my ultimate pillar of why I think I'm here today and being honored to interview with you and all the good things that are happening to me. But I have crazy conviction once I believe something because I've tested and learned it and was curious. So I think these things do battle against each other. Patience and tenacity are two of the ingredients I talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Imagine being equally patient and tenacious. Patience for me is a macro, tenacity is a micro, right? So you have to be tenacious in the task at hand, but patient in the overall mission. And I think people struggle with the levels. They struggle with the macro, micro.
Gotcha. So you may have one level of one and then a lower level of the other, and it kind of works together.
That's right. And one may be something about life, and another might be the project at hand.
Rule number 8, have humility.
I think humility, number one. I think the super ingredient, the super emotional nuance that most alpha winning leaders miss is the power of humility. For example, for me, with all the tenacity and conviction and accountability and self-awareness, all the traits that I talk about in the book that I have, conviction. I mean, one of the reasons I think I'm able to lead teams is conviction. There's no confusion for my 1,500 employees where I'm taking the company and what I care about. However, I think the only thing that makes me palpable, the thing that makes the whole engine, the gas, the electricity, the sun, that makes it all work is humility. And I think the biggest thing for a lot of people watching here is a lack of humility creates a humongous detachment between you and your team. And so something that's just absolutely not talked enough about, whether you employ 2 people and have a small business of 3, or you have 800 people in your department, is how significant humility is, because it humanizes you. It also makes people feel safe. When you're willing to admit you don't know or you messed up, it allows your direct reports and their reports to do the same, creating a much more emotionally inclusive environment. We talk, thank God the world now talks a lot more about inclusion from a gender and race and religion and things of that nature. However, I would argue that the biggest issue in the world today is the weaponization of fear. Politically, parenting. I think parents using fear to parent the way they choose to is actually creating a lot of vulnerability in children and is the reason for anxiety at scale. And I would argue that in corporate, in business, bosses that use fear instead of humility, which triggers safety, is the missing trait of the majority.
Rule number 9, think selfless.
I actually think it's because almost everybody produces content from a place of selfish. I just think that's what it is. When I look at the content, I'm like, this person could be good, but the only thing they're putting out is for them to sell their course.
So what's the recipe?
Put out content as if you work on television or work at a newspaper or work at radio from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and media was a public service domain. I'm a throwback. I'm Walter Cronkite way more than I'm anything else. And what I mean by that was the context was Walter Cronkite was a newsman that was in an era where they were taught when he was growing up in the 30s and 40s and 50s that the news was a public entity, that it was there to service the public. From the day I started and it happened, I got very lucky in hindsight of how I grew up in the game. I wanted to make content to review wine. I thought when I started Wine Library TV in my head before I did it, that I was going to do QVC. I was going to do videos and I was going to sell wine. I have no idea why my DNA did this. I can actually pinpoint it in episode 1. As a matter of fact, team, I want to actually make this piece of content. I'm going to pinpoint on an overlay the second my life changed, which is within the first 5 minutes. I have to look at the video to get the exact time. I go into episode 1. I got 3 bottles of Verte. I remember the wine because we had a lot of it and it was profound. Like there was a part of me that was selling good stuff. Thank God. Yeah. Right. So like the wine was very good and underpriced compared to Opus One and Dominus and Silver Oak. So I was like, I'm going to make a good first episode, but it was there because I wanted to sell it. And within 5 minutes, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not going to sell on this show. I'm going to act as if I left my dad's business and I'm just reviewing wine because I have to be valuable to them. And I practiced 1,000 episodes of that, reviewing wine, which is why the show went crazy. The show confused everybody. If you look at the early comments, like, wait a minute, doesn't he sell this wine? Because I'm on the show saying, all right, here we go. Oh my God, this wine is incredibly disappointing. The mid palate is hollow. How are they charging $65 for this? This is an $18 bottle of wine. And people are like, what is going on? And my own family was. My best friend Brandon, my dad, my cousin Bobby, all my employees were like, have you lost your mind? We have 25 cases of this. Who the fuck's gonna buy this? I'm like, people that don't watch the show. Like, I don't know. Like, and it was like very real. And then obviously when I went into business content, it was never there. Like when I got serious about VaynerMedia, I stopped making content. Every move I've made is very clear. It's there for my legacy, for being historically correct, for reputation building, right? Which, of course, as a brand trickles down into business. People know you, but it's not there as a monetizable individual event unless I throw a right hook.
Yep.
And I'm comfortable when we launch empathy to say, hey, buy it, but it's so infrequent.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is take action first.
This is why everyone struggles. The thing that everybody wants can only be achieved when it's earned. You haven't done anything. Too many people think fake it till you make it is real. Even if they don't think of it that way. They think of it the nice way, the way you're doing. This is very important. I'm really happy right now. This is something I haven't been able to dig into as much as I want, which is why I was so ready with it's earned. I've been thinking a lot about it. But you're not an expert. But who is an expert? And why should you even try to be an expert? I never thought for one day that I was a marketing expert or guru or genius. I just was executing every day and then talking about what I was executing. And then they decided more than me, you're trying to get them to believe that in you for your own self-interest. But you haven't done anything for them yet. More importantly, why can't you just be an enthusiast? I think everyone is so convinced that the money is in expertise, and I actually think it's in the enthusiast. And I think just by changing that word, everything changes. You're not gonna trick them, Gary. I don't give a what you did with those 7 videos. You're not gonna trick them. But you don't have to.
And I don't want to, that's the thing.
Well, you do want to. You don't want to trick them, but you want them to think you're an expert.
I mean, I want to build a business on my personal brand.
I understand. That's why you're vulnerable. The question that I keep pondering of what I see is working and not working is, do you know yourself? Right? Like people if it doesn't come as easy as breathing oxygen, you need to understand why. If making videos doesn't come as easy as drinking oxygen, you have friction. You're insecure about the way you look. You're insecure about what you gotta say. Huge problem in this space when I analyze it, people talk about they don't know. Yeah. Like if somebody, occasionally, if I'm on a real roll of talking about the same for a while, I get comments left and right for a period of time where they're like, GaryVee, you say the same and I'm like, that's right. Because I believe it. Because it's the thing to say. You know this. Some of you have been affected by other people, by myself. You've affected people. You sometimes say the same thing. Somebody's heard it 87 times. I said the same to my father this weekend at VCon that I've been saying for 37 years, and he told me this time it clicked. The amount of people, watch this. You want to see something cool? By show of hands, doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm detached from my success and from people on me. By show of hands, how many people here, the first time they ever saw me, thought I sucked and was a scam artist and a piece of shit? Raise your hands. Raise them high. Higher, higher, higher. Right? And then how many people that just raised their hands were affected positively by a piece of content in their lives? That's it. That's the game. Got it? That's the game. The reason that was an interesting thing, and I hope people looked back and saw how many hands went up, if you can go from this guy's a piece of shit scam artist to this person positively affected me, that is only required and can only be achievable when you only talk about things you know and you're willing to say them 87,000 different ways. Most people get caught up because they feel like they've already said their thing and they just start making up some other shit. Right? I see people like, yo, I'm a real estate expert. And I'm like 6 months later, I'm like, I'm a crypto expert. And like 13 months later, I'm the king of cannabis. I'm like, this person. You want to win in video? 2 very hardcore truths. 1, you have to know who you are as a communicator and not try to push yourself to be some other communicator. Some of you are funny, get funnier. Some of you are clever with words, feel comfortable. Some are loud as like me. Do you understand how real of a businessman I am and how many people think I'm a motivational speaker? Do you know how underestimated I am for my professional career, that people have no concept of how many big businesses I've built and what I do for a living because my style of communication feels spiely? And I'm willing to walk around on earth underestimated because I have no interest in slightly tweaking down my energy, because that's just not who I am. And it doesn't matter what people think. The truth is the truth. If you are not gift of gab, but you can what about making videos where you just read? It might not be as compelling as eye to eye, but that's you. Some of you shouldn't make video at all. You should leave right the now. I'm being dead serious. Some of you should be writing because you're a remarkable writer and you're forcing yourself to believe that video is the only winning because you can see it, yet tons of people are winning writing. Some of you should take a beautiful photo and just write. Some of you should just make a video of something mundane that makes the point of your video. It's literally a video of a banana and you're talking about slippery slopes. You like that one? I think it's a good one. It's good, because this game is completely based on you being comfortable in the way you make and talking about you know. And most people are doing neither. You think you're so then you make pretend that you're good. You think you're so it's lack of self-confidence, so then you spend all your time on everybody else and fake pretending that you're good. Posturing. All to protect that you're weak. The reason I give so much trust, you know this, is because I'm strong. You me? Cool. You lost, not me. Compassion is really, the difference between empathy and compassion is something I've been spending a lot of time for. There's a lot of people who are nice and there's a lot of sensitive people that are nice, but their weakness and their insecurity creates scenarios where they lash out and aren't nice. It's a funny one because if you're sensitive and empathetic, you do have feelings. You actually have a lot of good, but it's your weakness and your sensitivity that's causing your bad. It's like some of the shit I heard at VCon. This guy's got to get in. He's got 18,000 Instagram followers. Come on. What does that even mean? Who talks like that? And everyone wants to go there so fast. Posturing. People's intent is selfish because they're trying to plug holes. My mother and my circumstance plugged my holes before they started, so I'm a grown up with no holes. Of course I have holes, but a lot less than a lot of people. People live their whole life trying to close their holes. I'm the holes are closed. So let me go close other people's holes. I'm closing other people's holes. So I think a lot about these thoughts, because when you're confident, but humble, you're just balancing, You're purpling. Also, if you lack self-esteem, you're in trouble. If you don't think you're good, it's over before it started. You lost when you woke up. How many people here would like to be in better physical health? Raise your hands. Let me see. Raise them high. Don't be scared. Some of you are scared. Get it higher, baby. Let me tell you how to do that. I'm gonna help you right now. I would like you to eat healthier, less calories and cleaner, and I would like you to go to the gym and do physical exercise. But what do people want? They want to take some apple vinegar gummy pills. If they've got paper, they want surgery. Same with business. This is simple. Do the right things will happen. But people are always looking for shortcuts. People are looking to point fingers instead of thumbs. That's how our society is anxious. Gratitude will make you happy every day and make your business better. You know why? Because as we sit here right this second, there are 850 million people on earth that do not have access to clean water. This is a mindset game. This is a perspective game. You want to find positivity? I do it for a living. Guess what? It's there 24/7. You want to be happy? It's unlimited. You choose what life is. That's how I think about business. Anything you do that is not nice is costing you money. And the faster you figure that actually out, and the faster you figure out why you're not nice, the more likely you'll be successful. There's a really dirty secret in the strategy world of like Bain and McKinsey, where if you really get them drunk, they admit that the actions lead to the strategy, not the other way around. That's my answer to you. How? I make decisions. And then I try to look at my calendar the week ahead and see if any of the decisions I made 4 weeks earlier that made me think this was a good use of time, am I able to move something, cut something down? I'm extremely thoughtful about cutting times of meetings. So one of the things I think that really make me successful is understanding a 7-minute meeting is real and not just making it a 30-minute meeting. But the real reason is because I don't overthink it. I'm operating my business, I'm in it. How do I decide between going to dinner with Kevin Hart because I can and I want to build top of the funnel brand, or do I go take a mid-level client that I'm trying to build a relationship with? It's, you ask every normal person, it seems like those aren't super close, but I can touch the pulse and be like, I'm going to LA 4 more times in the next 3 months. The biggest mistakes I make are the ones of missed opportunities of the things by being crippled by opportunity. When you actually level that all up, my friend, it really is liberating. You will never even come close to making the right decision. I mean it. You just don't know what the alternative would be. People think that there's a right answer. You as an operator of your business, make the right call that feels right at that moment and just move. And people spend all this time and money on trying to think that there's a proper answer. I play on the extremes. I spend as much time as possible on the things that are showing me the most offense, right? However you're doing your customer acquisition to get to a hundo on a product like that, like whether it's Facebook, whether it's brand, and then I spend the amount of time on my biggest vulnerability. Putting my finger in the holes to make sure the boat doesn't sink, and building a bigger boat, and nothing in the middle. And knowing that I'm making that judgment at all times, and the second I get new data a week later, I might have to completely change what I thought was right the week before. It's also why I spend a ton of time with my employees. The reason I'm an HR-driven CEO is if you really understand this, both your biggest growth and your biggest vulnerabilities are actually your own team. So I think it's it starts with the ability not to overjudge yourself, because that is the liberator of the model I just broke down for you. How in the world can a human being be tired of admiration? Like, it's too humbling. I live a life where people think it's cool to take a picture with me. That's ludicrous. That's incredible. I will never figure out how not to lean into my humility. But that humility comes from a mindset that starts with deep self-esteem and deep understanding that other people's judgments actually have zero impact on your life. And I get to be the byproduct of tremendous parenting to have that mindset. Not everybody had that. My father didn't. I know how my grandmother raised him, and I watch how his actions go based on that. So I stand here, Orlando, today with deep gratitude for the way I was built. When I hear the accolades, when those cheers come, it's so easy for me to default into you're cheering me as a byproduct of a whole lot of great circumstances, a whole lot of good parenting, which doesn't allow me to get high or ever have an ego of not the humility. I'm the byproduct. I am desperate to figure out how to put sentences together to get you to understand how much that's the game. The reason I'm not interested in talking about becoming a millionaire is because I know thousands of millionaires who are miserable as what I'm interested in is trying to figure out how to get you to understand why it's so fun for me to play in the dirt. What I'm interested in is, why does this work for me? Why did it work for me? Why does it work for other people that I see? Right. Because most people have no interest in putting in the deep hours of work required to actually be successful. I think the lack of accountability is leading to so much unhappiness. Mm-hmm. Like, life is so much better when you're like, this was my fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're in control.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, this was like a wrap up to control. You're in control. Yeah. You decide what you consume. You decide what you believe. You decide who you surround yourself with. You decide what you put out. Take on accountability.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to blame right now.
Yeah.
The algorithm, they're acting as the algorithms are like hypnosis. Mm-hmm. And I understand endorphin hits and all that, but like, you can delete the app. Mm-hmm. You can. Like, where's accountability in this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we have alcohol, we have tobacco, we have drugs, we have weapons, and we have all sorts of issues, but most people play within moderation. That's on you.
Yeah. And it's a tough truth, right? It's a tough truth.
Especially when you're unhappy.
Yeah, yeah.
That goes back to why it's important. It's like the chicken and egg. It's like working out. Like, I got into better shape the last 8 years. Nothing comes less natural to me.
Yeah, tell me.
Nothing comes less natural to me.
I can relate to you.
Right? But like, I was like, I just would like to live longer.
Yes.
I would just like to live longer.
Yeah.
And go figure. It's not apple cider gummies. It's not steroids. It's not implants. I've thought about it. I'm like, can I get chest implants? I put in a lot of work. I feel like Seth's good. Like, I feel like I've done more than Seth, but like my body type, like, you know, and I'm like, I probably haven't, but no, it's like, eat well, go in the gym, do the right things. And so same for life, you know, whether it's meditation, whether it's exercise, whether it's therapy, whether it's good conversations, whether it's surrounding, you know, back to us not having the serendipity, you know, we've had some meals, we've had some interactions. They're always like, they're nice.
We need more.
I would like that.
Yeah.
And
like
we'll build
too.
on that. I think, you know, I'm spending more time thinking about spending more time with more while doubling down on core, you know? You know, because I did a really good job in the last 10 years of doubling down on core, but I think being as busy and I love what I do, you know, I really do want to build out more of a friend network. I want to take more people from lightweight acquaintance to solid acquaintance. I want to take people from acquaintance to friend, from friend to best friend. And so I'm on a journey like everybody else, but I think that, I think, believe it or not, and this is going to sound so crazy for so many, the world actually has so much potential for everybody listening to be the best time to be alive. Medicine and technology, and there's so much, but we're caught right now. It's like a hamster wheel. We're in the momentum of focusing on, you know, the bad.
Yeah.
And there's always bad.
Yeah.
The Holocaust was bad. Genocide is always going on. Genghis Khan was not a fun time to be a human.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like we are very bad at history. I was a really bad student, but I did well in history. Like, but that starts with you. What are you going to do about it? Because right now everyone's like pointing and feels like it's on someone else.
Yeah.
It starts with ourselves.
I mean, when you said that and you brought up the Holocaust, I recently read Edith Eger's book, The Gift. She lived through the Holocaust. And she had that mindset in the Holocaust. So she said the only way she got through it is she realized that she wasn't a prisoner, that the only prisoners were the guards because they were prisoners of their own conscience.
Unbelievable.
That was her mindset.
She's right.
And you know, she's like over 90 now or even older. And it's like, it's just phenomenal that her, Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, these two phenomenal books, if anyone hasn't read them, like they had that in that scenario.
Well, that's the point I always make to everybody. Like, you know, the only thing that works for me is trying to contextualize moments in time.
Yeah.
And like, you know, our great-great-great-grandparents had it rough by comparison to the way we have it. And sure, they had some things that were better on simplicity, but we must choose optimism because what's the alternative? Yeah. Pessimism? Like, are you just going to decide? Because once you decide, where are you? Once you decide it's bad, it's actually bad. And so like, one of the things that makes me very passionate to communicate is practical optimism or the fact that I believe negativity is much better at marketing than positivity.
Oh, for sure.
I feel a huge sense of responsibility. I think too many people overvalue their time when their time is worth nothing. So this is my favorite one. Like, I love when people are like, yo, is this worth my time? I'm like, well, and it's in a business context. I'm like, well, how much money is your business making? They're like, yo, I don't have one yet. I'm like, well, your time is worth 0. So I think people are audacious with their time. They're fancy before they're fancy. So everything's worth your time when you're at 0. You may bail. I'm a big believer of I'm in yes culture. My whole game is yes, comma. I'm not a great person to ask the no thing. I think there's people that are more disciplined at no. I just like the value of yes. And then if I'm a week, an hour, a year in, and I've realized it's not right, I leave. I bail. Because I'm not worried about the loss, because I'm not hearing anybody's opinions. I think you get context. You know, the reason I like starting up and stopping businesses is because I like the context. Like right now, I'm super hot on this thesis that sports trading cards are about to explode again. So I'm spending an ungodly amount of, like I spent 4.5 hours looking at qualitative data and quant data on eBay around Giannis rookie cards from Prism graded PSA 10. 4.5 hours. I don't have like 3 minutes for people that are running like $10 million businesses for me. So I like saying yes because I know I'm learning things, and then if I decide it's not worth it, I'll bounce. So a couple things I would tell you is, one, we need less audacity, right? And we need more tasting. And so, and I know when it's time to say no after I've said yes and realized after tasting it, it's no. I had a meeting today with a sports agent. My brother and AJ and I started a sports agency, right? So we now represent players in football. And he's a big shot. And he was like in one of those conferences with me, and I was educating on what we're doing, and he kind of took a step back. He's like, oh, whoa, this is way bigger than I thought. Like, you guys are really gonna win this thing, huh? And I said, yeah, and I said to him, and this is my favorite part, when all the agents that think they're big shots with big players are shitting on me and making fun of us. When people were putting me down, man, I was collecting them in my head. I just don't believe in anybody's opinion about me more than I believe in the opinion I got about myself. Do you know what the most delicious flavor in the world is? I told you so. You understand? I don't admire anybody enough to take their point of view on me over my own. Listen, let me tell you something about this country. We love the rags to riches story a hell of a lot more than any other story. You are set up for the good shit. It's just, are you gonna work hard enough and get into the right mental place to get there? This is just like health and wellness. Would you like to be healthier and better shape? Let me help you. Eat well and exercise. Every day. Meanwhile, people are like, ass implants, steroids, like apple cider, celery, like people are looking for the hack because people don't want to put in the work. Almost everybody thinks that resources are limited and almost everybody has a boss. I don't have a boss, so it's easy for me to talk this way. You know, I have empathy and compassion for somebody who's listening right now and does a seminar and gives away a lot of great advice, and then their boss coming to them and saying, what the hell are you doing? That's like how we get clients, and then they get fired or lose their bonus or are pegged down in the organization. Unfortunately, fear is remarkably effective and a real human trait. I just don't believe in it. And so I just believe that there's so much more financial, and by far, there's more financial, but by far, there's so much more happiness on the back of going with optimism and abundance as your mindset. And so I think it's culture. I think it's the industry culture for many, 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 many years. And I think that business has historically had a cold, kill or be killed kind of mentality. And You know, I think of sports a little bit, I think of business more like sports. I, as a fan, get so angry after a Jets game when my Jets lose and they go and hug all their friends on the other team because I'm pissed. But the reality is I actually fully understand it. I want to kill, crush, destroy, defeat, outmaneuver everybody I compete with at every second. It is my DNA. However, not at the detriment of their lives. Like, I want to do 10 trillion and I want you to do 9 trillion. And that's how I think, and I wish more people realized how real that is and how true that can be. And that's what I think about. This is a very simple business conversation. If you want to sell things, it's a good idea to make it easier for people to buy from you. And so the innovation is the mindset. The innovation is going home now and deciding what you just saw in this talk and saying, is he right or is he wrong? Mm-hmm. And if you find yourself saying, he's right, but I don't want to, I really mean this, that's okay. But then you have to be honest with yourself of where you are in your career, whether that means maybe doing something else because you don't have fire for it, or being content, which is fine, a beautiful thing if you're content, but you have to be aware that this is all happening around you. I don't have to tell this room how much innovation is going on in this space. You've got the biggest technology companies in the world interested in your money. I know what the big tech companies are doing. I know what's happening with blockchain. I know what's happening with the 20-year-olds that everybody makes fun of who are picking up incredible market share from a lot of you because they're actually being seen on social. They may not know the business yet. And you love making fun of them for that. I got bad news for you. That they'll figure out.
Yeah, no, that's. May need to take a pause on that one.
People make fun of things until they don't. Everybody made fun of the Kardashians until they didn't. Everybody made fun of Tesla till they didn't. Everybody made fun of my pictures until they sold for $1 million today on Christie's.
Congratulations.
People love to make fun of things. And what I'm worried about is this room's too successful.
That's a great
Success is the beginning of the end.
What are some of those, you know, you've spoken candidly about your parents and the meticulous upbringing. What are some of the things they taught you that now even get you to sit here and give back in such a fashion?
I think gratitude is the reason I give back. I think the single reason I want to put out all the content and do things like, I'm very compensated for a speech like this, but no longer does that make financial sense to me in my business world. It's just amazing to be here with all of you. I love it. Why? Because I know how I communicate. I know that I come here with an agenda, and that agenda is to suffocate one person in this room's bullshit with the hope that it's exactly what they needed to go do something so that in 4 years they could send me an email and say, I was in San Diego in 2021 and I thought I was hot shit, but then you got me and then I got my shit together. And now my family's so much better. And that feeling for me is better than even when I'm winning. So my selfishness is my selflessness. It's fun for me. I'm already good. You know, it's very easy to give when you're fulfilled.
Sure. Right?
And so for me, what happened? My family heritage was crazy up. My mom lost her mom at 5. My dad lost his dad at 16. We lived in the Soviet Union. A lot of people don't know this. I didn't realize how many people don't know this. You weren't allowed to leave the country. The country was a prison from 1918 to 1990. A prison. You weren't allowed to leave. Leave. Everybody spent time in jail because the government owned everything. Cuba and Venezuela are a vacation compared to the Soviet Union in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, you know, here I am. We left in 78. I'm 3 years. I'm growing up in America, and this is gonna really hit for this room. I'm growing up in America, but am I really? Because in my 4 walls, it's Russia. Right? But I have both, right? So in the house, all I'm hearing every Friday night and on the weekends is the stories of the old country, and it's a disaster. And I'm out here drinking Coca-Cola and watching Mickey Mouse. And so very quickly, I'm just thankful. I'm just grateful. And so gratitude was big. The other thing they taught me was, the story looked like this. 6th grade, Nintendo explodes, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Mom, Nintendo. And she's like, good, go get it. And so, that framework gets you serious about lemonade and washing cars and shoveling snow. And so my parents taught me a level of work ethic that I would, in hindsight at 45, say was probably too extreme. The 3 of us talk about it a lot. I think all of us collectively look at each other and say, maybe we took it to 130, 100 would have been fine, 80 would have been fine. We lived in 130. I worked, from the time I was 14, I worked every weekend and every summer vacation day of my life. All of them. Like when people hear it, I don't think they understand all of them. Not like kind of, like you meet people, they're like, they helped out in their family business every day. I was a terrible student. My parents sat me down at 14 and they're like, you're not going to Harvard, so you're gonna work every day. And so work ethic was taught. And then I had such a gift of communicating that my father really, really impacted my life because he has no tolerance for lying. And I had an incredible ability to manipulate everyone on earth. And when you're young and you realize you have gift of gab, you have no idea how to fully function with it, right? And so my dad really helped me because I was so scared of him. And for my father, embellishing or a slight exaggeration was like a death blow. He keeps it so straight, and that really helped me a lot. I think about that a lot. I was gifted with so many things, but it really worked out for me on how they parented me. But it all comes down to gratitude. When I tell you the only thing on earth I care about is the health of my family, it is the only thing I care about. Everything I do in business is a game. I don't give a shit. Money, all of it, health. This is hard. The concept of teaching someone to be more self-aware is something I've been thinking about for a long time. I think the thing that drives so many of us crazy in the world is interacting with those that struggle with self-awareness. I think one of the hardest things for people to deal with is hypocrisy. We struggle with it, and I struggle with it. The exercise in the book that I decided to do was creating frameworks for the people that know you the best to create a safe space for them to be able to tell you the truth. I think one of the reasons people struggle with self-awareness is because they have enablers around them that are allowing them to get away with bad behavior. And so I'm spending a lot of time trying to think about how one puts the people that knows them the best in a safe place to actually give them the critical feedback that could be the jarrer of a journey towards self-awareness. It's a very tough challenge. I don't know if I have the answer. What I can tell you is, no question, the business leaders that I admire, the human beings that I admire, are the ones who are off the charts in self-awareness. I'm incredibly grateful for the luck of the DNA game that I think gave me a lot of it. I would argue that the only reason I have any level of popularity is because of self-awareness, because of the kind of communicator I am and my personality. I would be completely not palpable if I didn't have high levels of self-awareness, because I have some really funny attributes as a communicator. And so it's a conversation we need more of. I do think that self-awareness has a very interesting relationship with accountability. I think that a lot of people actually know what their shortcomings are, but they try to navigate the world in a way where they are hoping that people don't notice. And it's something I'm thinking a lot about. My belief is that fear is powerful, and however you were brought up or what your ideology is on safety, you put having a job on a pedestal as something that's secure. The logic for all of us listening to you right now is if you're making double what you make in there, it seems like a very obvious step, but I'm empathetic that you're scared to make that jump. My thing to remind you and people out there in a similar situation is it's not very hard to get another job if you fail, if you leave this job. And so for me, if we were friends and we talked all the time, the thing I would always remind you every day is if you take the leap of faith and some reason it doesn't work, which by the way, if you're making double your salary as a side hustle, if you give 100% of your time to that, I have a funny feeling it's going to work out. But I would remind you that you could always go and get a job again in the same industry, maybe for a different company. Believe it or not, and I've seen this, sometimes for the same company because they missed you. That's what I would pound into your head, because whatever you grew up with, it created an ideology that a job was safe. Does that make sense to you, Mo?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you very much.
Listen, before you leave, you need to re-listen to that over and over and over. Every human being is the byproduct of what they listen to. So if you're listening to your parents or a +1 or somebody else that's saying, no, don't make the jump, you're not gonna make the jump. If you listen to somebody who's saying something practical like take the jump, and oh, by the way, if it doesn't work, you can always go back, and if it fails, who cares about other people's judgment? Then you'll jump. Do I believe that work ethic is a foundational piece of success? Yes, I do. Do I want anybody ever to work so much that they get depressed? Of course not. I never think that money is the driver. And so I think whether it's lazy headline reading or not doing homework, yeah, it's not been the most fun to get dragged into.
No, I was like on my phone reading that article. No, and there's so many people who are proof of the words that you say, me included. So yeah, it's like, oh man.
Listen, there's a byproduct of success.
Yeah.
You know, where people will, hustle porn's a term, leveragepreneur is a term. Leveragepreneur is when you're using other people to build yourself up at the cost of the other person. And I think that as you get bigger, people will leverage you, and I'm okay with that because the truth always wins in the end.
Right.
And I know the body of work that I've put out, my intent, and if you want to clip one thing or one definitive statement from one talk without the context of the whole thing, of course you can say anybody says anything. But the reality is that I believe work ethic is important if you want to achieve hyperbolic success. I don't want to tell people how to be happy.
Yeah.
So why are you telling me how I should be happy?
My job.
And there's plenty of people that are super depressed that work 40 hours a week. Like, it's just hyperbolized link baiting, leveragepreneuring, and I'm okay with that. But at the same token, it's important not to not take other people's points of view into account. And I'm in a constant, focus of that as well. Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for $20 a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like GaryVee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because You are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Alex Hormozi, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
And the difference is one person is all about trying to get to the money as fast as possible. What do I need to say to get this person to say yes? What do I need to say to get this person to buy, right? How do I get the money? The other way is how do I make some sort of exchange so that I can now create a long-time relationship with this customer?